30. Welcome to Pause Break 30. This is Patrick of the Jackman Group LLC, and I want to thank you for joining us today on this Thursday. If you are watching us live, we're streaming on both Facebook and YouTube. And if you're watching us live on any of those platforms, go ahead and do us a favor, just share with others. If you want to set up a watch party, you're more than welcome to do that. I also invite you to drop us some comments and the comments line, and we'll love to hear from you and read some of your comments. If you do have questions for our guests, you are free to ask those questions, and I'm sure that our special guests will have some responses or answers for you. Starting today, we are going to introduce a new series called Leading in a Time of Crisis. And our first guest in this series is Jennifer Lake. Jennifer is president and CEO of Goodwill of the Finger Lakes right here in Rochester, New York. So I'm going to bring her in right now. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Patrick. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on Pause Break. Before we get started, for transparency, I think it's best that I let folks know that I'm actually a board member of Goodwill. So just for transparency, so that there is no confusions. And then with that, Jen, let's go right in. The first question that I'm going to ask is, tell us a little bit about you, Jennifer Lake, and your new position. You are president and CEO, and then tell us also about Goodwill of the Finger Lakes.
Sure. So I've been with Goodwill of the Finger Lakes the last 14 years. I was born in Ohio, originally from Syracuse for my formative years, went to college at St. John Fisher, lived out in Los Angeles for about 5 years. And, when it was really time to come home and start a family, I came back to Rochester. And about a year after we were back, I really was looking for a not-for-profit opportunity where I could feel like I was working really hard and doing something in the community, really making a difference. And that's when I joined Goodwill of the Finger Lakes, though at the time it was called ABVI Goodwill, the Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And I didn't really know a lot about the ABVI part, but I had lived in different parts of the country and knew that Goodwill was connected to the community and typically did something around workforce development and creating jobs for people, which is something I've always been passionate about. So I came on board in a talent manager role, really looking to grow the organization as we were going from 4 stores to now 13, 14 years later, as well as our own leadership development. So I'm personally passionate about growing as a leader. So it's really been a joy over the last 10 years to grow programs along with myself. I got my master's, did the Goodwill Executive Development Program, and then about 3 years ago, moved out of the HR role and became the HR leader and the leader for donated goods retail. And then last fall, as part of the planned transition with our exiting CEO, who's retiring after 34 years, was named president and have been in that role since the fall.
Awesome. So this is perfect because it's about leadership, right? And you've had some years of successful years of leadership. So let's talk some more. Let's talk about what Goodwill is. Most people hear of Goodwill across the country and some areas of the world internationally, and generally they think of what? Donating. I'm going to take my stuff and I'm going to give it to someone else, or I'm going to go to Goodwill and I'm going to purchase some items. But I know Goodwill is much more than that. So tell us what Goodwill is and what Goodwill does.
Patrick, you are so right. To a lot of people, Goodwill is a store or a place to donate their used items. But we are so much more than a store. Goodwill of the Finger Lakes is integral to this community, and unfortunately, a best kept secret that it's my passion, and I know yours as well, to make sure that our community really understands. The stores and the donations really are a way to raise money to provide for our community and our mission programs. So Goodwill actually has 3 core programs. One is our 211 Lifeline. So anytime you need human service support, you can dial 211 or text 898-211 and receive information on human service needs, from how to feed your family, what to do if you find yourself unemployed or without housing, and also mental health crisis support. Our telecounselors even handle the crisis suicide calls for our community and really the whole Finger Lakes region. Your donations also support our programs for people who are blind or visually impaired. Goodwill's mission is really to prepare and empower people with barriers to independence so that they can be successful and contribute to their families as well as their communities. And right now, unfortunately, our programs for people who are blind are virtual or telephonic, given the in-person challenges that are currently going on. One of our other missions is our workforce development programs, where we help people gain the skills they need to get employment. We do this in some of our outer reaching counties, because our territory is actually 20 counties in New York. A lot of people don't know that either. And most importantly, in Rochester, Livingston County, and Syracuse, we also have our Working Wardrobe program that provides individuals with the clothes they need to secure a position. So it's anything from construction to day labor to professional positions for men and women who really have gotten their lives back on track and are seeking that next position, but maybe don't have a pair of steel-toed boots. We will actually provide them for free of charge. And then lastly, we partner with over 100 other not-for-profits with our Good Neighbor program to provide other agencies items they need or gift cards to buy or give to the people that they serve. So when you're shopping and donating to Goodwill, you also are working with agencies like Veterans Outreach Center, DePaul, Rochester Works, too numerous to name, but over 100 other not-for-profits do we help. So that's really what all of the stores and why we need your donations. It's to really keep those programs running in our community.
Awesome. Great. Sounds like if there's a lot to it. And Goodwill of the Finger Lakes is what is it? Is it a franchise? Is it a branch of Goodwill nationally or Goodwill International? Which one is it?
So we're actually an affiliate. So Goodwill's across the country. There's 158 independent, local 501c3 not-for-profits. So the common thread is that we have access to each other's informations. We don't compete, but similar to a franchise, you get all of the good things. So you can share training and lots of resources for running programs, as well as models for running our social enterprises. So Goodwills are successful and tend to be around because we generate the majority of our own revenue needed to run those mission programs. So we're less dependent on grants or specific fee for service. That, again, we're more able to control our own destiny and really live our mission by hiring people with barriers to independence and giving them a chance when other people might not.
Awesome. Good. I'm speaking with, this week, we are talking with Jen Lakin. Jen is the president and CEO of Goodwill of the Finger Lakes, and we're talking about leading in a time of crisis. This is our new series that we have started today. And Jennifer is talking about Goodwill right here in Rochester. So let's talk about how COVID-19, this pandemic, has impacted you and the organization.
So it's a really interesting time to be a leader in general, let alone a new leader of an organization, because COVID has changed so much of the way we work, the way we process our emotions on a daily basis, trying to balance, work, dealing with your children, becoming a school teacher in some instances, and really dealing with the isolation of what it has meant to be apart from each other. So, as a leader, it's really important that quickly I worked with our other leaders to truly establish new ways to connect with our employees and to be very transparent. And, communication was always key. But even now, in this time of crisis, it's even more crucial to ensuring that people feel valued, feel heard, and understand what all of this means in the course of the organization, their individual departments, and really right down to for their daily tasks. Also as a new leader in the community, people knew me in my previous role, and now leading the entire organization. It's put us in a relationship of basically establishing what we can do to support the community, and how we can collaborate with others to use the resources that we have at a time in a different way. So one of the things that we've been able to do is partner with the United Way and other human service agencies to distribute items that were bought through the crisis fund. So our Goodwill trucks initially, and now our warehouse is basically the distribution hub for other agencies. And through this Wednesday, we had distributed over 226,000 items to other not-for-profits that allowed them to keep serving on the front lines. So anything from food box containers that were needed to create the individual portions that then people could pick up and take home to continue to have a hot meal. Obviously, hand sanitizer, gloves, gowns, masks, and things like the Mask Maker initiative. So far, our community has donated almost 13,000 masks, homemade, sewn. There's a lot of people who are willing to try something new during this time. And again, I've just been overwhelmed with the willingness of so many people in the community to help and ensure that we can keep going. And 211 Lifeline is a huge part of that. Through Wednesday, we had over 22,000 calls that we've answered. And that same time last year, it was 6,000.
Wow,
so that gives you a sense of the magnitude of what our community is experiencing right now. And we're proud to be a part of it, while also continuing to pay our employees during this whole time, which makes me a little uneasy, but it's the right thing to do.
That's right.
Our employees depend on that, and don't need the stress of whether or not they'll get a check or not during this time.
Good. So you mentioned earlier, Jen, that you are a relatively new leader in the position that you are in terms of president. So you were appointed by the board of directors last year as president when Gidget announced her retirement or pending retirement. And then in April, you were appointed as CEO, right? So taking over, not knowing exactly with COVID and this whole virus coming and back in 2019, taking over an organization and then filling the shoes of a legend is hard enough. It's challenging enough. And then you throw in this whole national and global pandemic. What are some of the things that you've done as in your new role as president and CEO as you navigate this whole pandemic problem as a leader?
I think it's first and foremost giving myself some grace. And, I learned that from a mentor a long time ago, that there's always going to be things that you can Monday morning quarterback and think that you could have been better. You could have made a better decision. But in the moment, it's having that realization that if you follow your true north, if you lead, with your values, with the organization's mission in place, in a collaborative way, there's comfort in knowing you're doing your best and your best is good enough. As leaders, we can be very critical of ourselves, and sometimes we deserve it. But every moment is a tremendous learning opportunity. And right now, especially during this time, we're all in the same boat. So COVID has been a great equalizer for the longtime leader who's now seeing a once-in-a-lifetime event that organizations, communities, families, individuals have never had to navigate. So I think it's the realization that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to use your networks, be curious, involve other people. And the biggest thing I've learned is to listen more than you talk.
Sure.
Oftentimes it gives you that space, to truly understand where people are coming from. And right now, especially during times of crisis, oftentimes I hear Maya Angelou in my head, and the quote People are going to forget what you said, forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And it is so crucial, especially during this time, as a leader, to be hyper vigilant and sensitive to where people are at and what they're dealing with.
Good, Jen. So what leadership, and we're talking about leading in a time of crisis, what leadership lessons have you learned so far?
I think that when you approach things in a collaborative spirit, where you understand and appreciate that your idea may be good, but someone else's might be amazing. And it's okay to acknowledge, wow, we should really do that. And our community is coming together. I'm regularly on a call. The United Way and Congressman Morelli and Wade Norwood has convened a systems integration group that really the goal is to find a better way to help people access what they need in a more person-centered way and in a holistic spirit. And it's not about egos. It's not about this is my mission, that's your mission. It's truly putting aside all of that to come up with solutions that are best for our communities that we can all feel good about. And being able to lead right now in this time of crisis, it's actually accelerated some of that work and allowed a lot of our organizations to do some pilots where we are coming together to serve people more holistically. And, a great example of that is we're working with FoodLink and Lifespan and Medical Motors and Office of the Aging to distribute emergency food boxes to seniors. And it was an ingenious idea. And then from there sprung up another collaborative with Action for a Better Community and realizing that there's immunosuppressed population under 60 that can't leave their house right now. And how do we get them food? And this basic needs time helps you appreciate humanity and is really what any community-based organization is all about right now. And it's just been so refreshing to come together and do what's right.
Awesome. Good. Let's continue in terms of talking about leadership. Jen, how would you describe your leadership style?
So I am 100% a servant leader. There's a couple different tenets, Greenleaf and, people have iterated it. But at the end of the day, I truly believe as the leader, I am there to serve. I am there to share power, not control it, not over control with authority, but really by putting employee needs first, by focusing on growing and developing people, reinforcing their natural abilities and cultivating their learned abilities, the organization will truly succeed. It's taken a little bit of getting used to because with this transition has been a tremendous opportunity to promote the organization. So it's also been getting comfortable with some of that spotlight as well. I prefer to be behind the scenes, but it's great for the organization, and the response from our employees has been tremendous. Really feeling valued by the community and frankly understood, especially our 211 team right now.
Awesome. Got a couple more questions here. We're down to about 8 minutes. Who are some of the leaders that you look up to? That you say, okay, this person is great, and I would like to learn from that person or be a mentee of that person. Who are some of the leaders that you look up to and why?
So one of them, and every time I say this, everyone always says who. So Herb Kelleher is actually someone when I was in grad school. So my master's is in organizational learning and human resource development. He was one of the founders and longtime CEO of Southwest Airlines. And most people don't know that. And they don't know his name. And for me, hearing him speak, he is the quintessential servant leader. Anything that went wrong, was his fault, was his decision. The buck stopped with him, and all of their success, he is very quick to point to the individual employees that were behind it. But really built Southwest, the story is on the back of a cocktail napkin in an airport bar. Apparently that part's not true, but really by investing in employees, by building a culture that is incredibly compliant, still has fun, and that the employees really feel valued and heard and encouraged, and that the customer has a great experience. Who to thunk it, where you don't have an actual seat assignment, people would love it. So it was an ingenious model. And then honestly, growing up with watching Oprah and seeing how she has turned a talk show concept into this global company that is values based, gives entrepreneurs a chance to thrive, and truly leads with her values. It is just tremendous. So if I ever had the chance, I would love to. I'm sure lots of people would. But she just is this tremendous presence, and honestly became a mogul in a primarily male-dominated entertainment industry, and did it herself. And as a person of color, is tremendous and is well respected.
Awesome. What is the latest leadership book that you've read?
It actually was Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last.
Huh.
It was a great read. It should be of no surprise. But basically just looking at a slightly different take on some of Sinek's other works, and again, with a servant leadership in mind. So it's a great book if you haven't read it.
Okay. And then lastly, what suggestions can you give to other leaders or those who aspire to lead in non-for-profit? Well, in general, those who aspire to be leaders in organizations.
I think first and foremost, it's to really make the most out of every opportunity you're given. I think back to different times in my career where I wasn't as fulfilled, or, I didn't always have the best boss. And now that I look back where I am today, each of those moments taught me something about myself, or about the workplace, or sometimes about the leader I never wanted to become. But really using those opportunities to grow, and finding the learning in those moments is tremendous. And I always tell students or people that have transitioned into a new career to do that with every opportunity. So maybe you are having to get someone coffee. You can have a conversation with them when you bring it back about the project that they're working on, and you learn, and you build those relationships that 6 months down the road, where maybe they have a job opening, you can kind of leverage that. So the other thing that's really helped me in my career is not being afraid to ask for what you want. Sometimes we ask for what we think we have to settle for, instead of just asking for what we truly want. And, worst case, they say no, and you're really no worse off than you were in the first place. But sometimes we limit ourselves and we limit our opportunities. So don't limit yourself. Shoot for the moon, because sometimes you might actually catch it.
Great lesson. Excellent. Lastly, Jen, if someone wants to learn more about you or Goodwill of the Finger Lakes, how can they contact you?
Sure. So individuals I'm happy to give my email. It's jlake@goodwillfingerlakes.org. And you can also check us out on the website. There's a contact us as well. It's goodwillfingerlakes.org. And if you are, or someone in your family or a friend is experiencing hardship right now with the pandemic, you can also visit 211lifeline.org. And there's a great chat function. You can chat with someone, or you can self-paced search for your own resources. But please take the step to be a friendly support to someone who needs it, or help yourself.
Great, Jen. Thank you very much for taking the time for this interview, or this discussion, I should say. I know you will do great as a leader, You've obviously had a good mentor and Gidget. So I wish you all the best to your family, your husband and your daughter and your extended family. So we will see you probably in a couple of days.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Hope you and your wife are well. And I appreciate Tina's kudos in the comments. So thank you.
There you go. There you go. All right. So we are at the end of our discussion or talk with Jen Lake. Again, Jen is the president and CEO of Goodwill of the Finger Lakes. And Jennifer, again, thank you so very much for this time. For those viewers, I want to personally thank you for viewing on this Thursday. Pause Break 30. Again, we just started a new series, which is called Leading in a Time of Crisis. We'll continue this series for the next couple of weeks, and we'll have some new leaders that will be on. So you can just, if you're viewing this live, we are on Facebook as well as YouTube, or if you are viewing it in replay, you can also view it on YouTube or on Facebook. To contact us, feel free. You can hit us up in the comments, or you can send us an email at info@jackmangroupllc.com. That's jackmangroupllc.com. So remember, invite a friend, share with a friend. You can set up your watch parties. We want to make sure that this continues. This is our contribution as we move to educate leaders and provide this service to those that are out there, whether you're in Rochester, across the nation, or across the world. Thank you very much for this time. Until then, I bid you good night, safety, and good health to you and your family. And remember, stay safe, social distance. May God continue to bless you and your family. See you next week.